Unit 5, ratios and percents. Lesson 3, unit rates. Lesson objective, to find and use unit rates and unit cost. Vocabulary 3. First one is a rate. This is a ratio involving two quantities in different units. For example, 150 heartbeats per 2 minutes. The rate for 1 unit of a given quantity is called the unit rate. Example, 7 calories per 1 serving. So for 1 unit of a given quantity. A unit rate that gives the cost per unit is a unit cost. For example, $1.20 to 24 ounces is 5 cents per fluid ounce. This would be the unit cost. Let's take a look first at finding a unit rate and finding a unit cost. How do we do this? I would definitely star this, put arrows. We got an arrow here, drawing your attention to it. These are our 4 main steps on how to find a unit rate or unit cost. We're going to set up a proportion. When we do this, we want to make sure that we keep the unit labels for the numerators the same and then for the denominators the same. We're going to find the cross products. Remember, we did that in the previous lesson when we're solving a proportion. And we're going to solve for that variable, that unknown value that we're looking for. Once we have that answer, we're going to write the solution in the following form. You're going to say blank per unit, whatever the unit is, or you're going to say blank and then do a backslash and then have that unit. So for example, you could say 35 words per minute, or you could write it as 35 words and then have the backslash minute. Still read as 35 words per minute. It's just a shorthand version. So let's take a look here on page 8 of some practice problems. Here in the first 6, we're asked to find the unit price for each situation. Now remember, unit price is for 1. So if we are told that we have $70 for 10 shirts, and we want to know what's the cost for 1 shirt. This is what unit price is asking. So in order to do this, we're going to solve this proportion. So we're going to multiply the values we know. So we're going to multiply 70 times 1, and we divide by opposite the variable. So we're going to divide by 10. 70 times 1 is 70. Divided by 10, we get 7. So our unit price is $7 per shirt. And then this is what we would box as our final answer. Let's take a look at number 2. It says we have $150 for 3 games. So whatever we bought, it was $150 for 3 games. They want to know what's the cost, our unknown, for 1 game. Here we're going to cross multiply what we know. So we know 150 and 1, and we're going to divide it by what's opposite the variable. Here we have 150 times 1, which is 150, divided by 3. 150 divided by 3 is 50. So it was $50 per game. Now if you want to write out the word per, you can, but again the backslash is just a shortened symbol for the word. Example 3, $20 for 5 toys. So you spent $20 for 5 toys. They want to know what's the unit price or unit cost for 1 toy. Remember, you're going to multiply diagonally the values you know. So we have 20 times 1, and you're going to divide opposite the variable. So we're going to divide by 5. 20 divided by 1, or 20 times 1, excuse me, is 20. Divided by 5, which would be 4. So here it is $4, we'll write out the word here, per toy. And then that's what we box for our final answer. I want you to pause the video, take a few minutes, and complete examples 4, 5, and 6, finding that unit price for each situation given. Now let's take a minute and talk about comparing those unit rates or costs. Go to the grocery store. This is something very familiar that your parents, grandparents, older siblings, you should be doing if you're starting to go shopping, is comparing those costs. Just because it comes in a big bulk item doesn't necessarily mean it is the cheapest value. So we have to learn how can we compare those. What we have to do first is find that unit rate or cost of each of the items and then compare which one is the lesser amount. The lesser amount is going to be that better buy. Okay? When we're looking here in these practice problems, they're giving us the scenario here in this first one that Dylan scores 24 points in 2 games. Well, if Dylan scores 24 points in 2 games, I'm just going to abbreviate it we'll do GMS. That means they want to know how many points does he score in 1 game. So we're going to find that. Then we have Eric scores 40 points in 4 games. So Eric has 40 points in 4 games. We need to know how many points is that in 1 game for Eric. So this is Dylan, and then this is Eric here. Remember again, we're going to cross multiply the values we know, so 24 times 1, and divide what's opposite the variable. So we're going to divide by 2 here. 24 times 1 is 24, divided by 2 is 12. So here, Dylan scores 12 points per game. Eric, cross multiply what we know, 40 times 1, and divide by what's opposite the variable, 4. 40 times 1 is 40, divided by 4, which is 10. Eric scores 10 points per game. Well, in this scenario, who scores the most points per game? That's going to be the greater amount, and that is Dylan here. So Dylan is the one that scores the most points per game. In our next practice problem, we have a fern that grows 4 inches in 2 months. So here's the fern, and it grows 4 inches in 2 months. We want to know how many does it grow in 1 month. Okay. Then we have a tree that grows 6 inches in 4 months. How many inches is that in 1 month? Now they're all in inches here, so everything's the same label, same units. We're going to cross multiply what we know. 4 times 1, divide what's opposite the variable. 4 times 1 is 4, divided by 2 is 2. So the fern grows 2 inches per month. Here for the tree, 6 times 1, divide what's opposite the variable. 6 times 1 is 6, divided by 4. 6 divided by 4. If you can't do that in your head, you can go and always do it long division or use your calculator. It goes in once. 2 left over. So that's 1 2/4. That can simplify to 1 1/2. So it grows 1 1/2 inches per month. Which one of these grows more per month? And that would be the fern. So the fern here is the biggest. Now I want you to pause the video here. Once you turn to page 9 and take a few minutes and answer this last practice problem between Tyler and Joey. Now we're going to talk about those unit rates. When you know a unit rate, you can cross multiply to solve for multiple rates. So if you know a unit rate, but you want to find for multiple rates, you can use this. Here's your unit rate, your rate over 1, and then you can set it up as a variable, your unknown, over the multiple rate. Well, what does that look like? Let's take a look. Here are our directions for the practice problems, they say write the unit rate as a ratio, then find an equal ratio. First, we're going to write the unit rate as a ratio. Our unit rate, the cost is $4.25 for one item. That's our unit rate. So $4.25 for one item. Now, when they say find an equivalent ratio means X, we want to know then what's the cost for 5 items. So here when you're solving, we're going to cross multiply what we know, 425 times 5, and we're going to divide it by what's opposite our variable, divide it by 1. So 425 times 5, again, you can use your calculator or go off to the side. We'll go off to the side. I have 2 decimal places. It is 2125, and that divided by 1 just gives us the same amount, 2125. So our cost is $21.25 per, or you can do backslash, 5 items. And that would be that unit rate, and right here would be that equivalent or equal ratio. Let's look at the 7 cheerleaders. There are 7 cheerleaders in a squad. So 7, I'm going to say CL for cheerleaders, and in one squad, SQD. Okay? And we want to know then how many cheerleaders are there in 12 squads. So in order to do this, we're going to cross multiply what we know, 7 times 12, and we're going to divide by what's opposite the variable here, which is 1. 7 times 12, hopefully you know this, is 84, divided by 1, which gives us 84. So we have 84 cheerleaders per 12 squads. So this would be that rate, and here's that equivalent ratio to it. I want you to take a couple of minutes, pause the video, and answer the last question. Once you are done, this is your lesson for unit rate.